150 is called. Thank you. Welcome back, paddle 49. Every single bid counts across the aggregates for the average lot value at £150 is bid. At 150, any advance on 150 from you, paddle 134 or paddle 66. It's £150. Are we all done now then? At 150, we're reserving the individual lot at £150. Last and final call at 150. Thank you, 150. And that's reserved to 49 again. Pushing the sale. Lovely to see lot 1239. We move to the class 3F of the tower. And £100 is bid at 100. At 100. I see 110 now. At £110. At 110. At 110 for the pair of class 3F. Scarce class this for London. £110 is bid. At 110 is bid. On Spink Live at 110. Any advance 110 for the pair of class 3F pennies of London at £110. At 110. Any advance on 110? If you're absolutely sure, we'll reserve it at £110. You will need far more across all these lots in order to have a chance of winning them individually. At £110, you've been given fair warning. Last chance, 110. Thank you. 110. So you paddle 1-64. Lot 1240. We move on to the class 3G1s of the tower. The distinctive early crown. We have 11 in this lot. And we go straight in at 240. And 260 is called. At 260 now, helping that average, pushing it back up at £260 now. 260. Any advance on 260 with the auto bid on Spink Live. The book is out. It's on Spink Live at 260. Who wants to take them on? 280 is next if you'd like it. For the group of 11, the class 3G1 pennies of London at £260. At 260, muted bidding so far, but you've got over 85 of you still online. You're looking, but you're not bidding. It's £260. You'll need more to advance it. At 260 then, we'll reserve it at 260. Last call. Thank you. At 260 to paddle 1-28. Lot 1241. And we have the class 3G2s and class 3G3s and 3G3s and mules, I believe. Yes, we've got some transitional classes in here. 8 in the lot. Interesting group. And £200 is bid. At £200, at 220 is called. At 220 now. At 220. At 220. At 220. At £220. On Spink Live at 220. At £220. On Spink Live at 220. You'll need more, remember. 8 in the lot for the class 3Gs with the scarcer class 3G2 crown there. At £220 and holding. At 220. Last and final call if there's no further protest. I see more and more of you joining online. Now's your opportunity to push up that average and hopefully secure your individual lots. Here they come, 240. They've woken up. Remember, it's not just about being on an individual lot. You've got to bid across the average at £240 to have any chance of winning them individually. At £240, it's very simple. £300 or higher. At £240 is bid. Who wants to take on paddle 152? Who's doing their absolute best to help the herd here? At £240. At 240, we all done then? Are we selling at 240? At least to reserve at 240. Last chance. Reserved at 240. Thank you. 1-152. Lot 1242, the class 3G3s of the tower. And we have 7 in the lot with distinctive less forms. We go straight in at £120. £120 is bid at £120. On Spink Live, 120, 130. Here we go. Welcome back, 123. Take them on. It's £130 at £130. At £130. At £130. At 130. At 130. 140 is called. Thank you, 152. You've understood the memo. The more you bid across all the lots, the more likely you are to win the lots you actually want. At 150 now, push that average up. It's £150. Against you, 152. With you, 123. Still well adrift of the average you need. 160 is called. Thank you, 134. At 160, 170, here they go. They're getting into their stride. Just keep bidding. Slide and bids on the app, on Spink Live at £170. Push that average back up at £170. Is there any more in the tank from you? At £170. At £170. Are we all done now then? Are we absolutely sure you're not guaranteeing yourself anything here by not bidding more firmly? At £170 then, last and final call against you, paddle 134 at £170. Thank you, at 170. So paddle 123. And lovely. So we have here, this might help. Sure they agree. And we have 18 18 Canterbury pennies in the lot with some wonderful 3G3s, 4A mules, as well as 4As, 4Bs, 4Cs and 4Ds. A wonderful run of the Class 4 coinage of Canterbury. And we're looking for £200 to start me for this group of 18 coins at £200. At £200. Any interest at £200 for 18 coins? And there it is. Welcome back, Paddle 49. Trying your best. Who's going to take them on? At £200. At £200. At £200. At 200. And holding at 200. At 200, are we sure then? You're not helped. 220, thank you. 220. 2 places. Do you want 240? They go 240. 260? Shake of the head, no. At 240. 2 different bidders. Try again, 152. You're not doing yourself any favours by keeping the prices this low. At £240. You're just allowing it to walk out the door to another bidder. At £240. At 240. We all done now then? At 240. At 240, 260, here we go. They've woken up. Yes, push the average up. 18 coins in a lot at £260. Edward First Pennies. Seems like a snip. 280, thank you very much. Should we say 300? Paddle 152, it's 280 against you. Remember that average of 300 or above is what you need in order to push it to a runoff. It's £280 against you though. At £280, at 280, at 280 and holding at 280. Are we all done? Are we absolutely sure? 152. It's against you at 280. At 280 then, we'll reserve it at 280. Thank you very much, at 280. And that's Paddle 49. They're trying their absolute best to get this average up. Bless them. Lot 1244. We move on to Bishop Beck of Durham. The group of 5 coins. Very scarce class this for Durham. And a wonderful provincial grouping from the outset of Beck's Prince Bishopric at Durham. And we are looking for £100. At £100 to start me for this group. £100. This lovely group of Durham at £100. Any interest at £100? At £100 is bid. Thank you. At £100, the Durham issues on the floor at 100. Any advance on £100? At £100. You'll need much, much more for the average. 110, 120. At 120 now. On the floor at 120. At 120. With the room against John Spink Live, you'll need much more to push that average back up to have any chance of winning this today as an individual lot. It's £120 against you. Remember that global reserve. You need £300 or more per lot as an average. 130. Shake of the head, no. At 130 against the floor. At £130 then. At 130. And it's walking, at the moment at least, to reserve for Paddle 134 at £130. Last and final call at 130. You'll need to do much better at 130. It's reserved at 130 to Paddle 134. Lot 1245. We move on to the Class 4A2 3Gs Mules. And we have £150 bid for the group of 9. At £150 is bid. At £150 for the group of 9 at 150. At 150 is called. Any advance on 150 for the 9 coins of London, the mules as well. At 150. At 150, are we all done then? At 150, last and final call then, reserving at 150, at least for now, at 150. Thank you, 150. And that's to Paddle 139. Reserved. Lot 1246, we move on to the Class 4As proper, 4A2 and 4A3 issues, and we go straight at 110 for the group of 4 of these of London. At 110 for the group of 4, the variety scarce, especially the last, with the distinctive crown fleur ornaments. You don't often see on the group 4Bs. 110 is bid at 110 for the mules at 110. They seem all out of puff. Maybe they're saving themselves for the Irish or the Scottish, who knows? At £110, they're leaving it very much wide open as the opportunity slips through their grasp at 120 now. Thank you, Paddle 75. Remember, you have to keep bidding. Push that average up across every single lot, and you have a chance of walking home with it as an individual item at £120. But you're way off the pace at the moment at 120. Are we all done now then? Are you out of puff, Paddle 52? It's 120 to Paddle 75 then. Last and final chance at £120. Last call. Thank you, 120. And that's reserved to Paddle 75. Lot 1247. And 220 is bid. At £220 is bid. At 220, helping to push that reserve, that average back up again for the 10 Canterbury coins at 220. 240 is next if you'd like it. At 220 is next. At 220. At 220. At 220, all done then? At 220. At £220 then. Last and final call, we reserve it at 220. Thank you, 220. To paddle 139. Lot 1248, and we go straight in. People have understood the memo. Look at this. We have 100, 110, 120 is called. 130 on the book, 140, 150, 160, 170, 180, 190, 200, 220, 240, 260, 280. 300 beats me. My book is out. It's £300. For the Class 4 E's of Canterbury, the lovely, distinctive 3 pellets on breast. There we are. Look at how paddle 68 and IN 2055 have helped push that average back up. That's what you need to see for every single lot now on. At £300. At £300 then with paddle 68. At £300, you're in with a chance now, paddle 68. At 300 on the average, at £300. Last and final call then, at £300. Are we reserving it to paddle 68? Just remember that number and keep bidding that at £300. Reserved at least for now to paddle 68. Lot 1249. And again, our IN 2055 bidder has come in to help to the rescue as we bid 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160, 170, 180. Any advance on 180? At £180. At 180, 190 now. At 190 is called. At 190. New place at 190. At £190. At 190 for the 4 Bs of London. At £190. 9 of them in the lot. At £190 then. Are we all done? At £190. You will need more to take them on. At 190. Fair warning then at 190. And that is reserved to paddle 3 at 190. They will need more. Lot 1250. And we have 130, 140, 150, 160 is bid. At 160, at 160, at 160, at 160. At 160, we all done then? My book is out. At 160. Are we all done now then? At 160. Last and final call at 160, at least reserving for now with paddle 66 against the floor and against the live bidders. 170, thank you. 168 works out. Yes, you need to push the average up. Keep pushing the average up to have any chance of winning them as individual lots. At 170 now called. At 170. At 170, are we all done now then? At 170, that's our reserve. That's what we'll sell it for if the group bidders don't come back and the average is beaten. At £170 then, last and final call at 170. Fair warning. 170 on the reserve then at paddle 68. Really is that simple. You dictate the auction. You decide the price. Simple as that. £100 is bid. I must come straight in at £150 with me. At 150 with me on the book at 150. At 150. At 150. At 150. At 150. And 160 is called. 170 now. 170. 170. 180 is called. At 180 now. And so, interesting note, the auction team have just advised me the average so far is £190 per lot. So we are way adrift. You've got 70 odd lots to make a difference now. 180 is called. Thank you. 180. Is there any advance on 180? You're still £100 adrift of average. Think about that every time you bid. At £180. At 180. Are we all done now then? Are we selling it at 180? At least a reserve. At 180 then with you, paddle 66 at 180. Thank you. 180. Paddle 66, at least for now. Lot 1252. And I have 110, 120, 130 with me. 130 of the Class 4 Cs of London. 140, 150 with me. 160, 170 with me. 180 knocks me out of place. Out goes IN 1004. In comes paddle 66 again. 180 is bid. We're still below that average. We need a magic £300 or greater as an average per lot to see us over the line. At £180. At 180 then, my book is out. It's with the Spink Live bidder then, at least on reserve at 180. Last and final call at £180 then. Fair warning at 180. Last call. Thank you. 180. Paddle 66. Reserved. Lot 1253. And we have 10 London pennies of the wonderful Class 4Ds with that pellet before bust, and we're looking for £150 to start me here. An interest at 150 for the group of 10. Nice attractive lot this, at the 4D pennies of London with that distinctive pellet before Edouard and before Kivitas on the reverse. Looking for £150 at 150, at £150. Any advance on 150? At 150. Any interest at 150 is called. Thank you, Paddle 49. You are doing your level best, and we adore you for it. But you're not being helped out by your spink competitors. At £150 it is then. Are we reserving it at 150? It's a great little buy this, if you can get it as an individual lot, which at the moment it's slipping through your grasp. At 160, thank you. Paddle 132's woken up. At 160 now. At 160, is there any advance? At 160. At 160, 170, here we go. They've woken up. Yes, we're here to bid. Keep bidding at 170 now. At 170. At 170 is the bid at 170. At 180 now, new place. At 180. At £180. At 180, we're all done now then? Are we reserving the individual lots at £180 then? Last and final call at 180, 190 in the nick of time. Come on back. 200 comes up. Thank you. At £200. They're working it out now. Just keep bidding. At £200, push the average up. You don't need just 200, you need 300 or higher as an average just to get the chance to have a sniff of taking these home as individual lots. At £200 then, at 200. Have we got fair warning at £200 then? Last and final call at 200. It's reserved for the moment at least to paddle 1-3. Lot 1254. And we've got more Class 4Ds of the tower. This time we have, alongside the world's longest catalogue description, 14 coins in the lot. 14 coins, all beautifully illustrated and catalogued there for your amusement. And 242.60 is called. At 260 now. At 260. At 260. 280 now. At 280. 300. Where's the 300 come from? 280, thank you. I was wondering where the floor bid of 300 came from. Saw something I didn't there. At 280 with the Spink Live bidder. 300 is next if you'd like it. At £280 on Spink Live. At 280, you will need 300 online. To advance me, it's £280 with the Spink Live bidder then at 280. If there's no further protest, at least for now, you're below the average at £280. Last chance at 300, thank you. They've pushed the average back up at £300. At £300 now. At 300, at 300, at 300 then, at 300 and holding at £300. Thank you, 138, for hitting that golden average, but you need to push above that in order to secure this today at £300. At least for now, it's reserved at 300. Battle 1-138. Lots 1255, the Class 4Es of the tower. And look at that, we have 120, 140, 160 on the book with me at £160 on the book with me at 160. 170 is called. 180 now, new place at 180 for the lovely. 190 comes in at 190. Do I say 200? Yes, I do at 200. Thank you, Paddle 68. Are you coming back, Paddle 3? It's 220 now for the lovely Class 4E of London. Very distinctive portrait type this with the 3 pellets on breast. Lovely looking coin. This 240 is called, thank you. 260 now. 260, do I see more from you, Paddle 68? I do at 280 now. At 300, aha. We've now worked out, average that £300 per lot. 320, now we're pushing into new territory. Thank you, Paddle 68. You have contest. 320, 340 now. Looking for the opportunities. Do I say 360? We do. Paddle 68. Now we've got a contest on for a lovely penny this. At 380 now. At 380. There's a glimpse of new life and fresh opportunity for the individual bidders. Do we see 400, Paddle 68? If you push the average up on this one, you give yourself the opportunity across the whole sale to have them as individual lots. But you need to keep hitting that golden ratio at 380. Do we want 400, Paddle 68? It's 380 against you. A pleasing example of this distinctive type. Very fine. One of the nice effigies from the Hoard at 380. Are we all done then? It's £380 and holding against you, Paddle 68. Someone has taken you on, but it's with Paddle 3, pushing the average up. You can thank them later, if, of course, you get the individual lots. At £380 then, and reserving at 380. Thank you, at 380. Paddle 1-3. Lot 1256, and we have a second crack at this, so I'm sure Paddle 68 is going to have some fun. And we come at 100, 120, 140, 150 is bid on the book. At 150 on the book. 150 on the book, 160 is cool. 170 now, here they come. And here comes the contest. 180, yes, they're back again. 190, we're straight back. We're in this fight. 200 is called. At 200, 220, thank you. At 220, 240 now. At 240, 260. At 280. At 280, do I say 300? We do say 300. Are you wanting another one, paddle 3? Yes, you do. At 320, 340 now. At 340, you're going to come back. You've already won one. Are you going to be greedy? Are you going for class 4Es? At £340. What are you saying to that at 340? You're thinking about it. You're helping push that average back up over that golden £300 minimum. But at 340, 360 to advance me if you'd like it. It's 340 against you. Sure? At £340, you've done your business so far at £340. Thank you. At 340 to paddle 1-68. Lot 1257. And we move on to the group of class 4Es. Not quite in as sharp as condition as the others, certainly more well spent. And we have 8 in the lot, and we are looking for the paltry sum of £100 start me. I'm sure we're going to get £100 from someone. £100 is bid. Thank you. Straight off the bat at £100. Any advance on 100? 110 is called. Thank you. 110 at 110. 120 now at 120. They've woken up. Yes, keep that average going up at 120. Not only winning the lot, but making sure that you have at least the opportunity to take it home as individual lots today. At £120 is the bid. At 120. At £120, are we all done now then? At 120. At 120, it's going to paddle 3, at least on reserve. At £120 then, last and final call. That average has dropped back down again. Keep monitoring that. Lots 1258, we move on to the interesting pair of Canterbury's, the transitional portrait of a class 4E, but with the lettering of class 5. The joys of classifying Edwardian silver pennies. And the second, a very distinctive class 5 with that antler crown. And we're looking for £50 to start me on this pair. Rare pair of class 4, class 5 issues here for Canterbury. Looking for £50 only. To start me is bid. Thank you. On the floor at 50. At £50. In the room here at 50. At 50. Who wants to take them on at £50 with the floor bid here? And it's only going to reserve at this level at £50. At £50. Are we all done? No, we're not. 55 and 60. Why not? Have a contest. Push that average price up. It's £60 on the floor. Against John Spink Live, you will need more. It's £60 for the rare pair of Canterbury issues. At £60. Is there any advance? And holding with the floor bid then? If you're absolutely sure, paddle 68. This one's not for you. At least not in an individual sense. At £60 then and holding with the floor bid, at least for now. At £60 then, fair warning. 60, and that is paddle, rather appropriately, 60. Let's see if that's enough. You'll have to rely on other bidders to see if they'll bring the average back up for you to ensure that you go home with this today. As we move to lots 1259. And we have this lovely class 5A. Very rare class this for London. And we have 100, 120, 140, 160, 180, 200 is called. At £200 called already. With the auto bid at 200. At £200. On Spink Live at 200, 220, thank you. At 220, 240 is called. 260 now. At 260, 280. 300, thank you. At 300, the rarity collectors are out in force today at 320. 68 and paddle 3, you can thank them later. They are pushing up this average on their lonesome at the moment at 320. At 320, 340, paddle 49 did sterling work earlier on. If you'll pardon the pun, at £340 now. At 340, where are you, paddle 3? You seem to have hit your maximum. 320 seems to be your average limit. So you're really going for it at least. At £340 is against you for the lovely class 5A. At £340. Are we all done now? At 340, pushing that average back up. Thank you, Battle 68 at 340, giving it a good go at 340. Thank you at 340. And that, at least for now, is reserved to Battle 68. Lot 1260. Very interesting. Class 5B, 5A mule with the tall lettering and the squat lettering. Ah, the joys of interclassifications of Edward First pennies. £200 is bid at £200. At £200, 220 to advance me. You'll need more, paddle 68. It's £200 against you. At £200, you'll need more to bring up that average. It's £200. At 200, a boulder fine, rare. At 200 then, are we reserving it at least for now at £200, pushing the general average at 200. Thank you, at 200. Paddle 1-3. Lot 1261. And we have the pair of Class 5, rather the 4 Class 5As of London. There they all are, and we go straight at £100. I'm sure there's a contest for these at 110. Here they come. Paddle 167. Plenty of registrants today. At £110 is bid. I'm sure there's more in the tank though. At 120 now. 120 is called. At 120 from the specialist penny dealers. At 130 now. At 130, 140. Here we go. We've got a contest at 140. Push those prices though. At 140 for the 4 5As and the 1 5B 5A mule at £140, the group of 5 coins. Very scarce class this. Again, an exclusive feature of Hambleden. Nice selective run of supremely fine and of course those that are heavily circulated. 150 is called. Product of circulation of 60 or 70 years before they were buried in the foundations of a destroyed medieval building. 170 now, 170 at 170. A snapshot, a time capsule from the mid-14th century. At 180 is called now for these rare Class 5As. 190. We're going for it now at 200. Thank you. At 200. At £200. At 200. Against you 167. This rare group of 5 Class 5s at 220. We're getting there. We've got a contest going on now. 240. We're getting into our stride. We needed that morning coffee just to wake us up, but we're getting there. At 240. At 240, we'll need more paddle 167. At £240. At 240. At 240, we all done then? At 240 of the rare Class 5s, 5 of them in the lot, helping that average yet again at £240. Thank you, at 240, at least for now, reserved to paddle 1-3. Lots 1262. We move on to one of the additions. And curiously, one must also admit that the official Hambleden hoard had 616 silver pennies or rather 617 listed coins and 616 pennies and 12 gold nobles. When the archaeologists of Cotswold Archaeology turned up in July of the same year of the find, they discovered a further 32 silver pennies that for some reason never appeared on the official report. This is one of them. So this is an official coin from the hoard, not found on the Spring Detectable Rally, but one of the 32 subsequently found as part of the archaeological investigation of the building and offered today. And we have this very interesting Class 6 penny of Durham. It's got a fair old distance from Durham down to Hambleden, right on the confines of the Thames, and £120 is bid. We have 2 conflicted bids of 120, so I must go 140. 140 is now bid at 140, 160 now. 160, 170, 180, 190 with me. 190 now. At 190, 200 is called for the Bishop Beck long cross penny of Durham. A great rarity this. Durham Mint dies 51, and as you'll notice, when the site reference says blue spoils 2, that means it was found in the spoils as part of the blue Ziploc bags of the Cotswold Archaeology dig in July of 2019. And £200 is bid, at least for now, on reserve. For the Anthony Beck Durham Class 6B penny. Struck right at the time when medieval England was gripped by continental limitations, poor, bad currency called crockards or pollards, and it was the duty of Tower Mint officials to go out to local markets, to fairs, and seize any coin they thought bad. And of course, Hambleden in 1315 gained its own market under Bartholomew Badlesmere, and so perhaps some of these very silver pennies passed into the hands of locals to be spent at the Hambleden market that started in 1315. £240 is bid for the rarity. At £240 is there any advance? As I bid for this interesting coin found on the second dig of Hambleden in July 2019 at £240 for the rare Class 6B of Durham, Anthony Beck penny with the dies, Durham Mint 51 dies. One of the few examples where we can actually die match Edward First pennies, courtesy of the Durham Mint, and £240 is the reserve bid then, if there's no further protest from paddle 75, at £240, at least for now. It's on reserve, pushing up that average at £240. Thank you very much, £240. And that is to 1-67. Lot 1263. And here we go into the more wonderful mules and varieties. And how do we know they're mules? Well, on one side, the ends are double barred. On the other side, the ends are single barred. That's pretty much how you classify pennies. And so you end up with this wonderful Class 8A 7 mule. The only time we have a 7 in the series. Class 7s are notoriously rare. And of course, as evidenced by the 650 odd coins in this hoard, not a single one appeared as a true coin. But here we are with this pair of interesting mules, a Class 8A 7 mule and a Class 8A 8B mule, and £140, 140, at £140, 160, at £160, at 160, at £160. Any advance on 160? All on Spink Live. Paddle 68 doing the Lord's work here at 170 now. 123 joins in, 180 for this wonderful, interesting pair of rarities, the mules of Class 8A and 7 and Class 8 AAB mules. £200 is bid. And how do we know they're 8A, 8B mules? Well, for those genuinely curious, it comes down to the egg-waisted S and the top-tilted S. We love our classifications at Spink at £240 the pair now. Nice group of rarities here. Some nice selective rarities and choicer grade at £240. Rarer class here at 240. We're getting into our stride now. We're recognizing that if we bid together and push up that average, we actually have a chance of going home with the lots we want. Simple as that. It's £240. We have a contest at Spink at £240. At 240. Are we all done now then? At 240. At 240. Last chance at £240. Thank you very much. Paddle 1-68. You really are giving us a fair contest here. That's what we love to see at Spink. Lots 12.64. And here we are with some true Class 8As with the distinctive S's, and £100 is bid for the group of 4. £100 only. Any advance on £100? The ancient group of 4 Class 8As. Nice scarcities these. Not many presented in the hoard. All scarcer types for this mint at £100. At £100, 110 is cool. Thank you, Paddle 108. At £110. At £110. 120, we've got into our stride now. These ones struck right at the time that mint officials are going around the country, seizing any coins they consider bad, right before the second recoinage we're about to witness at £120. Very scarce issues these, right at the height of counterfeiting, forgery, imports, undermining of the official specie, the sterling standard of England at £140. An interesting group, these official coins. 4 in the lot at £140. At £140. At 140. At 140. At 140. At 140. At 160 now. At 160. At 160. At 160. At 160. Are we all done now then? At 160 then, if we're all done, if we're absolutely sure we're not going to push it any harder, at £160. At 160. At 160 then, last call at 160. Thank you, at 160. And that's reserved to 1-167. Trying their absolute hardest for the group cause. That's what we love to see. Lot 1265. And we have straight in for the Class 8Bs. Again, with the top tilted S's. One of my favourite pairings in the hoard. Nice, charming, quirky portrait types. This, the second one, slightly double struck, but nevertheless in really good condition for a pair of Edward First pennies. These are Class 8Bs with the top tilted S's. And £130 is bid. 130. At 130. Definitely ones for the connoisseur here at 130. 140. Here we come. They join in at 140. Push that average up at 140. If you want these, at 140, 150. Thank you. Here come the new places at 150, 160 now. Plenty of interest in these at 160. Generally do not know where this average is going to go at this point, at 160, because we've got some strong bids coming down the pipeline at £160. At 160 for this lovely pair of Class 8Bs of London. 170, thank you, at 170. We have 4 different bidders all contesting for this, but they're all being coy at the moment at 180. All thinking about it. No need to be coy. Now's your opportunity to buy it. The more you push, the more likely you are to win it. It's as simple as that. 190, thank you. 190, 200 comes up. The more you push up that average, the more likely you are to win your individual lots. I can't say that enough times. I can't stress it enough. At £200, 220 is next if you like it, 131. Lovely pair of 8Bs here. There are only 2 to be offered on their own at this hoard today at £200. Any interest at 200? Thank you, at 220. They've moved again at 220. They've worked out. They push up the average. They're more likely to win this lot. Really is as simple as that. 240 comes in. Thank you, at 240. Every little helps. Every bid marching towards that global total at 240. Do I see 260 now? It's 240 and holding at 240. At 240 then, if you're absolutely sure, paddle 131. Paddle 1-3 seems to be very selective in this hoard at the moment. They've chosen the individual option route. They're not able to do the group bid option, but they've gone for the individual option route, and they're certainly pushing as hard as they can for the chords. Try and do the same. At £240 it is then, Paddle 1-3. It's reserved with you at £240, at least for now. 1-3. Lot 1266. And we have 5 Class 8Bs. We have 2 Class 8Cs with that high arched crown. And we have a Class 8BC, not clear whether it is an 8B or an 8C based on the double striking. So 8 coins in the lot, 8 coins, and we go straight in at 240, 260, 280, 300. 300 is bid. That's our golden ratio. That £300 average has been met at £300, courtesy of the pre-bidding. At £300 now for the 8As, 8Bs, 8Cs. Or are they just the 8Bs and 8Cs? 8 in the lot at £300. At £300. At 300. Are we all done? Is there no advance? The book bid has taken us up to that golden threshold of £300 for the 8 coins at £300. Still work to do down the line at £300. Last call at £300. Thank you, at 300. And that's reserved to Paddle 1-167. Your underbid at that time was IN 1021. Lots 1267. We move on to the secondary coinage, the Class 9As, the Statute of Stepney. That wonderful period where Edward I is forced into a secondary coinage in his reign with these distinctive crown puncheons and portrait puncheons, the quirky introduction of new provincial mints again. I'm sure some strong contest biddings as well. And we have £180 bid. Fortunately for 167, 190 comes in 200, 220, 240, 260 is called, 280, 280 now. 300 comes up. Thank you, at £300 for the Class 9A1s. We've got 8 coins of the Class 9A for London. 9A1 and Class 9A2, I believe, as well. Yep, 5 coins of Class 9A2s, the old crown and the new crown. Start of the secondary coinage, courtesy of the Statute of Stepney, to remove the counterfeit coins from circulation, of which there are, of course, so few in this hoard. £300 is bid for the group of 8 coins at £300. We've hit that magic ratio again at £300. Paddle 66 is out, Paddle 49 is out, Paddle IN 10021 is out at £300. At £300 then, are we all done? At £300, last and final call at 300. Thank you, at 300. And that is reserved to 1-167. Your underbid at that time was IN 1021. Excellent. Lot 1268. We move on to the Class 9A2 coins and Class 9B coins of Canterbury. And we are looking for just £100 to start me for this group of 5. The muling's very clear and rare. 9B1, 9C mules. We have 2 of those as well, with a very distinctive double-barred ends and square-cut T's. £100 is bid for the group of 5. 9A, 9B, 9C. Mules into between them for Canterbury. 5 in the lot. 110 is called thank you for 167. 110, the more you push the average up, the more likely you are to walk away with them as individual coins. If you don't push the average up, you cede your opportunity to the group bidder. And 130 is called thank you. You have to work as a team across every single lot now at 130 to push that average up at £130. Or you're leaving yourself far too much to do down the track. At £130 it is then, at 130. Are we all done now then? At 130 for the rare group of 5 Canterbury issues, including the 9B, 9C mules. At 130 then, last and final call at 140. In the nick of time, 150, they're pushing it. Why not Paddle 49? Just keep bidding. You've got to push that average back up if you want these. It's 150 against you with Paddle 167 at 150, at 150, at 160. They've tried 170. Here we go at 170, pushing that average up at 180. Oh, we've got tunnel vision now, 190. This is what we want to see. At 190, 200 is called, 220, thank you. At 220, 240 now. At 240, they were waiting in the wings at 240. The group of 5 Canterbury pennies, Class 9A, 9B, 9C, at £240. Again, 167 and Paddle 1-3, pushing the average up, doing the lion's share of the work. Now you can contribute. You need £300 or more as an average in order to get anywhere near close to going home with these as individual lots today for the Hambleden hoard. Otherwise, they're going to one buyer. At £240, then are we absolutely sure? Are we out of path 167? You've done a fine job, but you're not quite there at £240 then. Last and final call, and we reserve it at 240. Thank you very much. 240 to 1-3. Your underbid at that time was 1-167. Lots 1269. We move on to the pair of Bristolian issues, class 9B1 and 9B2. And we have some lovely bids here. I must go 130. 130 with me. At 130, 140, 150 with me. At 150, 160, 170 with me. 180, 190, 200, 220, 240, 260, 280, 300, 320. I have a prior 320. Can you go higher? Can you go higher than 320? 340, thank you. That knocks me out of place. Look at that. The book bid doing the lion's share of the work again. At £340, it goes on Spink Live, though. The pair of Bristol issues. Popular pair, this, class 9B1 and 9B2. Only 2 issues, the secondary coinage for Bristol, found in the Hoard. £340 is bid. Look at the work that 68 has done to help push that average back up. Reclaim some of that lost ground from earlier lots at £340 then. Are we selling it at 340? At least to reserve at £340. Thank you very much. 340 to paddle 1-68. It's on reserve. Your underbidder was 2015 that time. Lots 1270. We move on to Durham again. And this time, this important distinction, something I learned courtesy of this Hoard. I didn't realise that Bishop Beck of Durham was actually suspended from his post twice in the ability to produce coins. This was his first suspension under the secondary coinage, and it was in the King's receivership because there was quite a few pesky local landlords, one of them being Robert the Bruce, causing a few issues in the north of England around this time. And it just so happened that Bishop Beck was one of his local supporters. And so his first suspension is witnessed here. The class 9B1 coins, the Great Recoinage. The second, at least, 4 in the lot of Bishop Beck, and we go £120. The first suspension, Durham pennies of the King's receivership at £120. Do we say 130? Cool piece of English history here at 130. And the start of the wars with Scotland and Wales at 130 is bid now. You'll need more paddle 81. You'll need more paddle 150 at £130. The group of 4 Durham pennies for King's receivership at 130. Our selective paddle 1-3, again, selecting rarities at £130. Does anyone want to take them on? At £130. At 130. At 130. Are we all done now then? At 130 and holding. You'll need to do a lot more with the other lots to push that average up. At 130 it is then. We'll reserve it at 130. Thank you. To 1-3. Lots 1271. And we move on to the only coin of Exeter in the Hoard. One of my personal favourites. Bit of family lineage down from the West Country in Devon. Love a good Exeter coin. Civitas Exoni, the only coin in the Hoard from Exeter. One of these slightly numismatic preferences of the Hoard. The person who originally found the Hoard, undoubtedly one of the Peveril family, who owned the land between 1250 and 1350. Unfortunately succumbing to ill health and the Black Death of 1349. £160 is bid. A sought-after scarcity in the Edwardian series. Here we go. 170, 180. They're piling in now. The Exeter penny at £180. Is there any more? Who's going to be taking them on? It's paddle 68 and paddle 84 at the moment at £180. 190. Ah, here comes specialist 1-3. What have he spotted? Or she, of course, at £200. 220. At 220 to 40, here comes paddle 68 again. At 240, 260 for the Exeter. 280 is called. Do we say 300? Do we say our golden average at 280? We do. 300, 320 straight back. Why not? If you want that Exeter penny from the Hambleden Hoards, call your own. Now's the opportunity to bid at 320, 340, 360. We go on. People like a provincial mint. They like Exeter. This is why they're offered as they are. 380, 400 comes up. Are we going to beat the Chester price at 400, 420, 440, at 440? How far will we go? How high will that average be benefited? At 440, 460, 480. Do I say 500 now? 2 bidders absolutely pushing hammer and tongs at this. 500 is called. 550 comes up at 550. That's what we like to see. At 550, pushing that average to the absolute limit at 550. This is what you have to do. All of you 110 bidders online, this is what you have to do for the rest of the auction. At 550. What are you saying now, paddle 3? You've had your momentary pause, your blush. You coming in at 600? Why not? Try it. At 600, they come in. At £600, do I say 650? It's £600 against you, paddle 68. Do you want 650? Or do you think you've done enough? You don't. It's £650. At £650, we might be getting on for a record for a single Edwardian penny of extra at this point. At £650, but are they out of room? Pressure's back on you, paddle 3. Both of you doing the absolute Lord's work, pushing up the average of the whole auction at this point. 700 is called. At £700 for a silver penny of Exeter. Do I say 750? Desperate bidder here at £700. 750 if you like it, paddle 68. At £700. Really, really considered bidding. Helping the herd here, not just the individual. At £700. At 700, are you out of puff, paddle 68? It's £700 now. You've got the result of 2 lots in 1 and help that average. At £700 then and holding, if you're absolutely sure, against you, paddle 68 at £700, then the gavel is up and we go to the reserve at £700, very much helping that total at £700. Thank you very much. At 700 to paddle 1-3. An incredible contest there. Thank you very much indeed. You have helped endless bidders with that. Lot 1272, we move to Newcastle upon Tyne and the wonderful trio. Some fun things going up in Newcastle at the time with the 9B1, 9B2, and almost unique to Newcastle and given its own distinction and classification, the Class 10X coins, which have the obverse of Class 9C with that really quite crude portrait of Edward I, and the reverse of the 10AB coins that come in 1301. And so we have 3 rare issues for Newcastle upon Tyne, Villeneuve Castri, and £110 is bid. £110. The 3 issues of Newcastle with that rare Class 10X issue in there. At £110. At £110. 120 is called. On the floor, 120. At 120 with the room bid. At 120, 130 now. 140. At 140. At 140. 150. 150 in the room. We have a contest. 160. Shake the head no. At 160. For the trio of Newcastle pennies at £160. At 160, some rarities in here. For the provincial mints, 170 now. Oh, welcome back, paddle 1-3. You're not done from the bun fight, from the last lot. At £170 now. 180, here comes 167, your old nemesis. At 180 now. Do we have more? It's 180, 190. At 190, the specialists are out in force today. At 190, pushing up the average as much as they can. At 190. Do I say 200 from you, paddle 167? For the trio of Newcastle pennies, 9B1, 9B2, and 10X. Nice trio here, all courtesy of the Hambleden Hoard. 200 is called, thank you. Pressure's back on you, paddle 3, at £200 now. At 200 for the trio of Newcastle pennies. Motoring along on Spink Live at £200. Well, I'm going to ruin someone's day because I come in with a book bid at 220. At 220. At 220. At 220, and I must go 240. 240 with me. At 240 to split up my 2 book bids at 240. At 240, do you want to go 260, paddle 167? It's £240 against you. At 240 with my book bid now. At 240, remember there's postal bids, book bids, telephone bids, carnage on Spink Live at £240. At 240, we're all done then. Are we selling it at least to reserve at £240? Last and final profile at what, £240. Thank you, 240 to paddle IN 1002. That's on reserve at 240, and your underbidder was 1-167. Lot 1273. We have the Class 9B coins of the Tower Mint, Class 9B1 and 9B2, with a distinctive curved crown and straight crown. And 140, 150, 160, 170, 180 is bid at £180. The group of 11 coins a lot, 180. Who wants to take them on? 180. The group of 11 pennies in the lot at £180. On Spink Live at 180. At 180. At 180. At 180. Are we all done now? At 180. At 190. New place. At 190. Who's going to take them on and keep pushing that average up? At 190. At 190. At 190. And 190 then, are we absolutely done? At 190 then, are we reserving it below that important average? At £190, it's reserved at least for now, 190 to paddle 1-108. Hard luck. You're going to have to keep those fingers crossed to see what the rest of the market does with the other lots. Lots 1274. We move to the Class 9B coinage of York, 3 issues of the Royal. And then, of course, our ever favourite at the very end, the Kingston upon Hull, the sole issue of Kingston, Vilkinseston. And beautifully, we have the original records that state that 12 furnaces were opened in Kingston upon Hull for the benefit of striking these very coins. And I also bring further good news. The average for the lot value has been pushed up to £216. We're going in the right direction. But we have done almost half the Hoards. So the back half of this auction, you've got all to play for. £216 the average now. And we go in, lot 1274 at £100. Thank you. Straight off the bat for the Kingston upon Hull penny, along with 3 York issues at 110, 120 now. Here we go. We've got a contest. 120, 130, 140, 150. That's what we like to see. 160. You know you're going in the right direction. 170. Keep pushing hard. Keep pushing that average up. 180, 190. Here we go. 200. You've been waiting for the Kingston upon Hull lot. This is it at £200 now. Keep pushing. The more you push up the average, the more likely you are to walk home with your lot today at £200 now. 150, you've been throwing a contest down, but it's with 1-3 again. Our Rarity Hunter at £200. At 200, is there any advance on 200? At 200 for the Kingston upon Hull, the sole issue of Kingston upon Hull in the Hoard today, along with 3 Edward the First pennies of York at £200. Are we all done? Are we knocking it down to reserve at 200 then? Thank you. 200, 1-3, and your underbid at that time was 1-150. Lots 1275. We move on to the primary phase, post-Great Recoinage, the 10AB coins. This of Bury St Edmunds, taking us through to the secondary phase. Again, no more Robert de Hadley, just Vil, the Ski Edmundi, and of course, as a proud Edmund myself, I'll be suitably offended if you don't bid on lots that have my name on them. £65 is bid at £65. Here we go at £70. You're all in my good books. Paddle 81, paddle 75, paddle 150. Here we go at £75. £80 for the 3 issues of Bury St Edmunds. 85, thank you, 85 and 90, especially with that unusual error, misspelling Ireland without the Y in Hibernia, just HB. Whoops. Mint money is error there. £95 is bid at 95. Any advance on 95 at 95? Do I say 100? 100. Oh, paddle 1-3. You're in my good books too at £100. 81, 150. All of you queuing up. 75, 27. Look at the different bidders. £110. This group of 3 at 120 now. Why not? At 120. At £120 is bid. Any advance on 120? The interesting rarities, the Bury St Edmunds issues at £120. At 120. At £120. Are we all done now then? At 120? No, we're not. 130. They keep pushing. Thank you, paddle 75. You're having a go at least. The more you push up the average of every single lot, the better you will be positioned for when that group bidder comes swooping back with their right to reply. At £140, is there any advance on 140? For the group of 3, Bury St Edmunds penny, all scarcities. At £140 then, we're absolutely sure. At 140, last and final call at 140. Thank you, 140. That goes on reserve to 1-3. Lots 1276. And we move to the primary phase long cross pennies of Canterbury. And we have the 10AB3Bs, 10AB5s, and the 10AB3As. 4 in the lot, £100 is bid at £100. The group of 4 Canterbury issues struck early in the new century, the start of the worst century on record in English history, the 14th century. £100 is bid at £100. A paltry £100 bid. You're leaving it all to play for. Those that don't want to contest, paddle 150 here. It's £100 for the group of 4 Canterbury issues at £100. Any contest? Ah, there is at 110. Why not? At £110, the group of 4 Canterbury pennies at 110. 120. Thank you. 120 on the floor now. At 120 with the floor bid. Here in London against John Spink Live. Do you want to come back? All of you working to push up that magic average at £120 and holding with the floor bid then, at least for now, at £120. Last call then, at 120 against John Spink Live. 120, it's reserved to paddle 329, at least for now. Your underbidder was 1-150 and 1-3. It was 329. Lot 1277. And we go to, again, more coins of naughty Bishop Beck and his first suspension, which was 7th of July 1300 to 1302, when he was back in the good books of King Edward I. And we have this very interesting Class 10AB3A 9C mule in the lot, as well as a true Class 10AB3A. Don't worry, I'm not breaking down into some form of binary code. These are genuinely the classifications of Edward I's pennies, courtesy of Coins of England. And we have £75 bid. I must go £80. £80 with me. At £80 with me. Take me on at £80. At £80 and 85 now. 85 and 90 now. 90 is called. 95, 100 now. 100 is called. 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160, 170, 180, 190, 200, 220 on the book with me, 220 on the book with me, and holding against the room and against you online at 220, at £220, at 220. One more, 240 then. 260. Try again at 260. 280 is called now. 280 now. I go 300, 320 with me to keep my book bid in step at 320. Why not at 320? Again, the Durham coin's proving popular at 320. At 320, do you want to try again? You've maxed out. Absolutely sure. Okay. All done in the room then. All done on Spink Live. Hard luck. It's with the book bid then at £320 against the floor and against Spink Live. At £320 then. Last and final call at £320. That really does help the average for the pair of these at £320. Last and final call at 320. At least to reserve at 320. You can thank Paddle 2015 and IN 1016 as underbidders for keeping that average going. Lot 1278, we move to more mules. The 10AB 9A mules with the regular S's, the 10AB 9B mules, and the 10AB 3A 9B mules as well. Nice rare group here. Very distinctive primary phase, secondary coinage mules. I mean, the easiest coins to classify in the Edward I series. They're just so distinctively different, like having Times New Roman and Arial typeface on different sides of the coin. Getting distracted by the gold. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. £90 is bid. At £90 on Spink Live at 95. While I introduce the lots, they're bidding furiously on Spink Live. We're up to 95 for the trio of these at £95. These interesting mules, the 10AB 9 mules, at £95, courtesy of the Hambleden Hoard, that of course we are privileged to be offering here at Spink today, at £95. We have a true hybrid auction contest here. We genuinely do not know where it's going to go, whether it's going to pivot back towards the group bidder or go to individual lots, but they're leaving a lot to do at the moment. £100 is bid at £100 for the mules, at 100. 110, waiting in the wings, as ever. Paddle 1-3, welcome back. You have over 100 bidders online, but only 40 of you hovering over that bid button. Now is the opportunity to secure something from the Hambleden Hoard if you wish it. At £110 now, 110. At 110, are we all done? With Mr. Reliable, or Mrs. Reliable, of course, at £110 then, last and final coil. 110, it goes to reserve, to 1-3. Lots still to do. Lots 1279, we move on to the highly distinctive, and again, curious annular issue. Remember, we had one for the 1D. This one's even more curious. Why do we have one as issued for the 10AB coins? No clarity to that, but a noted rarity within the Edward I penny series, struck 1302 or 1303, and 140 is bid. I must come in at 160, 160, 160, 180 then. 180, 190, 200 is called. 220, 240, 260, 280, 300, 320 with me. 340 beats me. It's £340. The 10AB 3B 9B mule. Don't worry, I'm not breaking out into song. It's £360 now for the classification 380. Look at them go. Here we go. Take them on, Paddle 158. 380. The more you do now, the more you push that, the more likely you are to win. at £400 as individual lots. Back paddle 1-3, 420, here they come at 420, 440 now, at 440, 460. Do I say 480? I do. 480. Do we say 500? It's not bad for an Edward the First penny, is it? 500 now. Now you're in an advantageous position here, paddle 50. At £500, the next increment is 550 for this rarity at £500. 550 is called at 550. 600. Now we're in this position again with extra pennies. It's paddle 50 and paddle 3 again. They know something we clearly don't. It's £600 at £600. At £600. 650 new place. 700 is called at £700. Paddle 3, you blinked and you're out of 100 quid out of sequence. Do you want to come back? You've got two different bidders here. 158.50 and paddle 3. Two contestants and a winning bidder in paddle 50 at the moment at £700. At £700, really helping that average at the moment. At £700, 750 they come back. At £750, 800, breaking all kinds of records for individual Edward First pennies. Going tonto on Spink Live, that's what we like to see, at £800. Do we have 850 anywhere? It's £800. 850 is called at 850. At 850, do I say 900 paddle 50? It's against you, £850. An amazing price for this, at £850. Forget the estimate, it's £850. And paddle 50, paddle 158, and paddle 3 are absolutely carrying the day for all the individual bidders at the moment because they are motoring along with these prices, pushing up the average and making sure we have a contest. Over to you, paddle 50, you out of puff? Have you decided to regain your senses, your sanity, your coffee or tea? And at £850 for a single Edward the First penny, never in my life did I think I'd be saying that for a Class 10 AB penny. But there we go, it's £850, courtesy of the Hambleden Hoard, at least to reserve, and with a fighting chance now at £850. Thank you very much. It's on reserve to paddle 1-3. You're underbidded at dash 50. Look at that. Lot 1280. We move on to the trio of 10AB 3As. This time, of course, without the annulets, but in with that group. We have the 10AB 5s. We have, yes, all Class 10AB 5s, and even one 10AB 6 again, with the die sinker's unfortunate error, missing the Y from Hibernia. So Ireland had literally been forgotten by the time that this coin was struck. £160 is bid for the group of 10 at £160. At 161.70, here they go. They're getting into their stride now. They can sense there is renewed optimism because they've seen certain coins push the average back up at £180 now. 180. Keep going. Keep that average going at £180. At 180. At 180, are we all done now then? Paddle 149 is back in business. We're back with the average at £180. At 180. At 180. Are we all done now then? At £180. Last and final call at 180. Fair warning, with more to do at 180. Thank you, at 180 to paddle 1-49. And we move on to lot 1281, the secondary phase long cross pennies, the classic Class 10 CF. Virtually every detectorist around the country who's ever found a single Edward First penny will recognise this class. Might not necessarily know the exact breakdown, but 10 CF1 with that very distinctive battle axe shaped central fleur. £120 is bid. 150 and 68. Renewed optimism. Paddle 81. Bidding with abandon now. £140 as we motor towards the end of Edward I. 150, 160. We have a contest at 160. The more you bid now, the more likely you are to overcome that average lot value. At £160, at 160, at £160, absolutely, £160, at 160 and holding at 160. Are we all done now then? Are you out of puff, paddle 81? You've had your fun? At £160, at £160. Are we all done now then? At 160, at £160. Fair warning at 160, leaving plenty of room still to do. At £160 then at least a reserve. Thank you, at 160. It's paddle 1-68. Lot 1282, the 10 CF2As. And we go straight in at £200 and £300. Straight in at £300, thank you, at £300 on Spink Live at 300 for 15 coins in the lot of the Canterbury issues, 10 CF2A, and what additional 10 CFs have we? 10 CF2Bs, lovely. 11 of 10 CF2A, 4 of 10 CF2B. £300 is bid. We've hit that golden average, £300. Every little helps from now on. Who wants to take on paddle 167? My book is out, all on Spink Live, at £300. At £300, at 300. Are we all done then? At 300, are we absolutely sure? We're leaving it to chance then. At £300 then, last and final call at £300. Thank you, at 300. 1-167, your underbidder was IN 1019. Lot 1283, and here we are. The restored Bishop Beck, he's back from his first suspension, and he's back in with the 10 CF1 coins. And look at this, plenty of interest in this. The last struck flat on an overweight planchet with much residual luster. Actually, the interesting points to note in this particular coin is the excessive weight of the third coin. Flat struck, almost flat, but the weight of 1.5 grams of silver. Very, very heavy for an issue this time. And of course, as coins were issued for their metallic content, that would have seemed like an odd coin to have in your hand at the time, when the others are 1.2 or 1.1 grams. So a 1.5 gram coin, very heavy coin. Clearly an error now that Bishop Beck had been returned to favour, at least in production of coins at the time. £130 is bid. Interesting piece of medieval history here. The heavy penny of Bishop Beck and Durham at 130. At £130 is bid. At 130, paddle 1-3, here they come back again. Ever predictable. At 140 is bid now. 140. At 140. At 140 now. At 140. Are we all done now then? At 140, last and final chance at £140. Thank you very much. Leaving it to chance again, 1-3. Lot 1284, just try, see what people can be pushed to. Don't be timid bidding here. It's all to play for. Lot 1284. We have the class 10 CF1s of the Tower of London, 5 of them. There they are. Attractive portrait pieces here, and we come in at £120. At £120 only. Who wants to push up the price for the 5 class 10 CF1s? 130 is called, thank you. 130, nice photogenic piece is this, with that battle axe central fleur at 130. Again, leaving a lot to chance here. You're going to have to put a lot into the Scottish and Irish if you want to bring back that average at £130. At 130. At 130. Last and final call at 130. At 130. Are we all done now then? At 130. Are we leaving it to chance at 130? Thank you. At 130. We're going in reverse. Remember to keep that average up wherever you may be bidding from in the world. Lot 1285. And we have 5 more 10 CF1s, all distinctively grouped based on site reference B3. You'll notice the other distinctive feature, and of course we have to thank the Fines Liaison Officer Annie Bayard and her partner Paul for the way that they so diligently excavated the Hambleden hoard. And you'll see every single coin has a reference, site reference, B3, L1, G5, F2. That relates to exactly where the coin was found within the original archaeological grid. So not only if you secure these as individual coins, will you be able to place them in their time in history, but the exact spot in the original archaeological find. A unique opportunity for hoard collectors and penny collectors. £120 is bid for the group of 5, though, at £120. And we have our overt die sinkers error. We have more errors. And the third coin has the second O over a misplaced N in London. Nice little bit of quirky die sinker error history there. £130. London misspelled by a money in London at £130. At 130. Is there any advance on 130? Paddle 49 is desperate to keep going, but it's £130 with them at the moment. 140, thank you. Pricing in that error at 140. Why not? At 140. Are we all done now then? Are we absolutely sure? Are you out of puff, Paddle 49? Again, leaving it to chance at £140. Last and final chance at 140 then. We're reserving it at 140. Thank you. At 140 to Paddle 1-81. Leaving lots to do. Lot 1286. And we have a splendid run of 10 Class 10 CF1 pennies of London. 10 the lot. The 4th overtly double struck. Variable field patine, otherwise generally broad strikings on full flans. We like this one. And £200 is bid at £200 now. 200. Again, below that average. We need to bring that average up. We have 220 now and 240. At 240, 260 is cool. Thank you at 260 now. On Spink Live at 260. They're trying their best at 260. My book is out. It's on Spink Live at 260. At £260. At 260, are we still bringing that average up at 260? Who wants to take them on? 10 examples of a 10CF1, Penny of London, struck 1305, 1306. At £260. Just the last 18 months of Edward Longshank's reign. At £260 then, we're going to leave it to chance if there's no further protest. Last and final call at £260. Thank you at 260. Battle 1-139. A fair fight. You've had your fair opportunity. Lots 1287. Just 50 lots to go of the silver. So we'll see. What is our average at this point? 220 is bid. I come in at 240. IN 1019. 260. Thank you. At 260 beats my IN either or bid at £260. 10 more Class 10 CF1 Pennies of London. There they are at £260. At £260. Any advance on 260, or is it going to the same bidder at £260, trying their absolute best at 260. Third likely clipped, oversized or broad planchets, generally bolder than fine or better. At £260 then, are we all done? At least for now, at £260. Last and final chance at 260. It gets reserved at 260 then, to same paddle, 1-139. Lot 1288, we move on to the 10CF 2AB coins of the tower. 12 in the lot. And we go straight in at two conflicting bids of £220. £220. So we'll start there at 220. Who wants to split them up? 12 coins in the lot. There they are, all beautifully illustrated. For your viewing pleasure at £220. Any advance on 220? At £220. At 220. At 220. Are we all done then? There's no further protest. We'll reserve it and leave it to chance at £220. Thank you. 220. And that is to paddle 1-66. Lot 1289, the 10CF2ABs, another group of 11 in the lot here. And we are looking for £200 to start me here at £200. Let's keep that average up. Let's give it a contest at £200. Any interest at £200 for this? At 200 is bid. Thank you, paddle 167. Remember, each and every lot counts together to the cumulative total. So the more you bid now, the more you put it out of reach for the group bidder. But at the moment, you're well below the average pace, so you need to come back strong in the last half of the auction at £200. At £200. Are we all done then? Are we notionally reserving it then at £200? Last and final call at £200. Fair warning. Thank you. £200. 1-167. Lovely. Lots 1290. And here we are again with our power bidder on the book. We have Edward II, the comprehensive last run of Bury St Edmunds, taking you from the secondary phase coinage all the way through to the end of Edward II's reign. And again, site reference L4003C48. You can place that on the map as to where it was found. We have 200, 300, £400 bid at £400 bid. On the book with me at 400. With me at £400. Helping that average at £400. At £400. At £400. Average is incrementally inking up. It's now £220 a lot. £400. This will certainly help, but we need more at £400. Fortunately, some of the heavier lifting is done by the last lots of the sale at £400. At 400 then, if there's no further protest, the 10 Bury St Edmunds pennies, I will notionally reserve it to the book against you all at £400. Thank you very much. 400 to paddle 2015. And the underbid at that time was reserve. Lot 1291. And here's one of my absolute favourite discoveries, and the reason we have the interesting coins of Robert the Bruce. This particular issue of Edward II, and the only reason we know it is Edward II is because it can only be a 10CF2 or a 10CF3, and because the name is Edouard with an R at the end rather than Edouard without, we know that it must fall into Edward II's reign. And why is that important? Because, again, courtesy of Bishop Beck, the naughty Bishop Beck, and his second suspension between December 1305 and September 1307, we know this coin must have been struck sometime in the summer of 1307 or September of 1307. A really tight dating group for an Edward I penny, courtesy of Naughty Bishop Beck and a particular stylistic pattern and quirk of the moneyers of Durham. And so we have a name not particularly well known to history outside of Durham, at least, the King's Receiver of Durham at the time, Robert de Clifford, 1st Baron and Keeper of the Liberty, an important individual, a signatory, a Chancellor of England for a time, someone who was entrusted by the King implicitly to protect the north of England against the rebellious barons from Scotland, and who was taken over to seize the very lands that Robert de Bruce had vacated in his pursuit north to take up the kingship of Scotland. And so in one coin, we have an immense amount of English history, personal individuals, social history, all from Durham, in a wonderful rare penny. And we must come in with some really sensible bidding here at £280, but there is plenty more in the tank from this at 280, 290, 300, 320 now. Here we go, we're off at 320, at 320, 340, 360 is called, at 360, at £360 now, at 360, at 360, at £360, at 360, 380, at 380, 400 now, 420 is called, at 440, here we go, 460, welcome back, paddle 3, at 460, 480, 500 now, at £500, at 550, 600 is called, at £600, 650, 700 now, at £700, 750, £800 now. Here we go at £800 for an ultra rarity, an Edward II penny of Durham, the 10CF 3B of Durham, under the King's receivership, Bishop Beck's second suspension, Naughty Bishop Beck. 850, 900 is called, at £900 for a Durham penny, struck under the time of Robert de Clifford, 1st Baron and Keeper of the Liberty, and holder of the King's receivership and the dies of Durham at the time for a very brief period, at £900. You've beaten 1-3, that is a rarity, paddle 62, at £900, at least for now, £900, at £900. This wonderful historic piece from Durham at £900. A beautifully neat round coin, extremely rare and of historical importance at £900 then. Are we holding on the reserve then at 900, giving a fighting chance, bidding for 3 lots, not just one in a sense, at £900. Thank you very much indeed, paddle 62. If you're out, paddle 3 at £900. What a contest that was at £900 to paddle 62. Your underbid at that time was 1-3, and we also had IN 1061 in there as well as a book bid. Wonderful piece of English history there. Hopefully, going to a new home, whether it is a group bid or an individual bid, remains to be seen. Reserved at 900 at least. Lots 1292. We come straight in for more Durham issues from the King's Receiver, 10CF4, £150 is bid at £150. At 150, and of course you see the restitution of Anthony Beck by 10CF4 in 1309, and 160 is called. Lovely pieces of English history here, the interplay between the crowns of Scotland, the crowns of England, and the reigns of Edward I and Edward II, just in advance of the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314, at £160, a febrile time in English history, and of course in Scottish history across the border. £160 is bid, but I must come in at 220, 240, 260, 280, 320 bid, at £320 bid with me, at 320, smashing the individual bids on Spink Live. It's £320 with the book here, at 320. Now we're getting interesting, at £320. At 320, we're all done. At 320 then, if there's no further protest from paddle 50, paddle 57 or paddle 139, it's with the book bid at £320, pushing above the average, doing the lion's share of the work again, and it's all to play for at £320. Thank you at 320 to paddle 2015. Your underbid at that time was IN 1001. And lots 1293. We move to Canterbury, the 10CF3s of Canterbury for Edward II. We go straight in at £150. Don't leave it to chance. We have 8 in the lot, the first of which could be a contemporary imitation of finer style with that very quirky-looking tall portrait. Could well be an unofficial issue, but established within the 10CF3 corpus nonetheless. 170 is called. Potentially one imitation of 10CF3 with 7 regular issues of Canterbury. 170 is called at 170. It's the most unusual hybrid auction I've ever done, but it's fascinating to see how people place their bids, where the book bids come in, where the averages go. At £170 is bid, at 170. Are we all done? Are we leaving it to chance then? If you're out of puff, paddle 50 at £170. You're absolutely sure? Last and final chance, and at £170 for 8 Canterbury pennies at 170. We'll leave it to chance and the reserve. 1-7 at £170. Lots 12.94. The 10CF4 Canterbury issues, 4 of them in the lot, as well as a host of other 10CF5 and 10CF6s with that distinctive small S. And we go straight in, looking for £200. At £200, an interest at £200 for the group of 11 Canterbury pennies. At £200. At £200 is bid, thank you, at 200. Some rarities in there. The 10CF6, of course, very unusual. 220 comes in. Thank you, paddle 167 at 220. 240 now. 260 is called. Why not at 260, pushing up the average? 280. 300 at £300 now. Why not? 320 at 320. And 167 has got it. If we average £300 across it, we push it. And they've stopped. 320. But remember 167, you have to average £300 across 120 lots, not just one. At £320 is against you at the moment, but they've pushed it at 320. They're giving themselves a fighting chance, but is it enough? At £320. Fair warning then, at 320, last and final call at 320. Reserved, at least for now, to paddle 1-3. He's obviously spotted something with that 10CF6 there. As we move to the 10CF3ABs, go on. Not going to tire of saying all these classifications, but there we go. 9 in the lots. The last with Horn Silver, beautifully crisp and uniform for strike. So we like to see. And we have £120 bid only at £120. Don't leave it to chance. At 120, 130. At 130, 140, 150 now. 160, 170 now. 180, 190 now. At 190. At 190 now. At 200, 220 now bid. At 220. At 220. At 240. 260, 280, 300, 320 bid, at £320 bid, at 320, at £320, at 320, at 320. Are we all done now then at 320 for the lovely group of 9 Tower Mint pennies of 10CF3AB. 320 it is then. Last and final call at £320. Thank you very much, 320. Reserved to 2015, and the underbid at that time was IN 1057. Lots 12.96. And the 10CF4s, 11 of these in the lot, and we go straight in at £220. At £220. At 220. An interesting group. Generally fair to good fine. 220 is called at 220. Anyone going to take on paddle 57? It's £220. At £220, the average inching up ever so slightly every single couple of lots that we offer at £220. At 220. Do I say 240 anywhere? If not, I'll reserve it at 220. Last and final call at £220. Fair warning. 220 to paddle 1-57, leaving plenty of work still to do in the lion's share of the auction. Lot 12.97, the 10CF5s, 4 in the lot, and we have £80 bid, 85. We're getting into our stride now, £85. Keep on pushing. The more you push up the average against the estimate, the more you help the overall cumulative total at £90 now. Keep it going at £90. At £90 and holding against you, paddle 1. New place, 71, 95 now. 100, why not? Say 100 is bid. Thank you for the 4 coins, £110. Every little helps at 120. Keep pushing up that average. At £120, the 10CF5A2s of London, with the left-hand ornament inclining left. How wonderful. Lot 12.97 at £120. At £120, wheel done. Is that where we've decided to stop? At £120, then welcome along paddle 192 to the contest at £120. Last and final call at 120, but you need that average of £300 or more across the 120 lots to have a contest. At £120 we stop, at least for now. 120 is the reserve to 1-192. Lot 12.98. Class 11. And we would head with the first, the Canterbury issues, 7 of them in the lots. 11A2, 11B1, and an interesting 11D, 11B3 mule at the end there, with the varieties of thin and thick letter forms. People really love their classifications in Edward. And we have 160 I must come 170, 180, 190, 200. Keep on bidding at 220, 240, 260, 280, 300, 320. 340 beats me at 340, thank you. At £340 now. On Spink Live at 340. At 340, the book is out and the other live bidders are so far out. We have 110 people watching online enjoying the auction, but now's your opportunity to bid. The more you push the price now, the easier the average will become later on. At £340 it is then. At 340, at £340. Who wants to come in at 360? The variety is more seldom encountered in public commerce. 380, here we go. At 380, it's a battle royale again. Paddle 3 and Paddle 68 again, 420. They're trying their luck at 420. At 440 now. Every single bid helps that average at 460. Are they going to try again? 480. At 480, 500 comes up at £500. Very much helping the average there at £500. For the group of 7 issues of Canterbury at £500. Paddle 3, do you want to go 550? It's over to you at 550. And they do at 550. One more in the nick of time. Do you want to try again? Paddle 68, it's £550 against you. For the 7 coins of Canterbury, the class 11 issues. From the Hambleden Hoard at 550 then. You've pushed as hard as you can. It's just £50 more. If you want to help put it out of reach of the group bidders, now's your opportunity. The more you average up the value now, the better chance you will have of taking these home as individual lots today. At 550 then, if you're absolutely sure, Paddle 68, last and final call against you, £550, at least for now. That's on reserve then, 550 to Paddle 1-3. Thank you again, 1-3, doing the lion's share of the work. Heavy lifting for the rest of the flotilla of bidders today. Lots 12.99. And again, we see plenty of interest. We have the fascinating Class 12A and the Class 13. Class 12 is, of course, distinctive only to Canterbury issues with the so-called strawberry leaf, central fleur of the crown, a unique quirk of the Canterbury Moneyers. And we can go straight in with 2 conflicted bids of £400 on the book with me. At £400 on the book. 420 is called thank you. At 420. 2 rarities for Canterbury. And the unique Class 12 issue from the Hoard. Only one of these in the Hoard, so now's your opportunity. Paddle 68 is securing it at 420. I'm sure that Paddle 3, given its rarity, is probably going to float in the wings at some point. But they're biding their time, as plenty of viewers are online, at 420. And as if on cue, 440, 460, here we go again. At 480, at 500, at £500 now for the pair of rare Canterbury pennies at £500. At 500, do we say 550? At £500. We do at 550. Do we say 600 now, Paddle 68? We do at £600. They've decided to push. Why not? They don't want to be bested by Paddle 3. These 2 bidders literally opening the doors to potentially every other previous lot to those individual bidders. Help them along. Keep bidding at £600. You know the average you have to get at £600. Is there any more in the tank from you, Paddle 3? At 650 now. There is 700 at £700. At £700. Oh, look, it's you. At £700. At 700. Is there any more? At 700, Paddle 3. And holding. Do you want to try again, Paddle 3? You've pushed us this far at £700. And holding against you then, if you're absolutely sure, 68, you've found their pressure point. At £700 then for the pair of Ed with the second pennies. At £700 then, last and final call at 700. Thank you very much. At 700. Paddle 1-68. Lovely. And the other bidder was 1-3. Lot 1300. We move on to the Class 14s. 7 of them in a lot, some with superficial extraction marks. I'm sure that wasn't you. It's fine. Someone else. It was someone else that did that. At £160, £180 is bid. The lovely group of 7 Class 14s. 180 is bid. But here comes my book. 200, 220, 240, 260, 280. 300, 320 on the book with me. At 320 on the book with me. At 320, 340 is called. Thank you. At 340. Now we're getting into it at 340. Every single bid pushing up that value at 340. At 340 is lot 1300 dawns on us at £340 for the Class 14. At £340. At 340. At £340. Are we all done then? At £340. At £340. Last call then at 340. Thank you very much. 340 to 1-65. The underbid at that time was IN 1061. Again, lot 1301 at 120. 130 is called. At 130 is called. At 130. At 130. At 130. At 140 is called now. At 140. At 140 pounds. At 140. At 140, 150 is called. At 150, who's going to take on paddle 81 and paddle 150? Leaving the 3 class 15 pennies of Canterbury. Open to chance at the moment. Nice little group here. They're right to the end of Edward II's reign. At 150 pounds. At 150, 6 years after the dire situation at Bannockburn, these coins were struck at 150 pounds, right in the absolute zenith of the Hambleden market stall fairs, under official sanction for 1315. At 150 pounds is bid. Any advance on 150? We're going to leave it to chance then. Lot 1301 is left to chance. At 150 pounds is the reserve. Thank you. 150 to 1-81. Lot 1302, we move on to London and we take a take 2 of the Edward II coinage. We start with the class 11s again. 10 of them in the lots. We go 11A, 11C and 11B2 mules. And we have 10 in the lot, and we go straight in at £200. But I must come in at 260. With me at 260. At 260. 280 is called. Thank you. At 280. We'll need more. It's £280 with the Spink Live bidder against the book at £280. At 280. At £280. And holding on Spink Live at 280. At 280. At £280. And holding at 280. Are we all done? Are we going to leave it to chance at £280? Last and final call at £280. Thank you, 280. 1-139. Pushing as hard as you can. Lot 1303, class 13 penny. And we have plenty of interest in this. I have a book bid that must jump me straight in at £280 with me, please. 280, 300, 320 with me. 340, 380 with me. 400, okay, 400. My book and either or bids are out. It's £400 on Spink Live. The 8 examples of a class 13 penny. The third of superior quality, near a very fine. Nice group of class 13 pennies of London here. At £400. At £400 then. At £400. At 400. At 400. At £400. Are we all done then? My book is out. The live bidding is out. All with the Spink Live bidder then, who's not left its chance. They put in as good as they can, and £400 takes us over that average, at least for this lot. Last chance then at 400. Thank you, 400 to battle 1-65. And your underbidder was IN 1072 for that one. Lot 1304. We move on to the class 14 issues of the tower, and we have 4 in the lot. Fair to final marginally better. We go straight at 150. At 150. At £150. At 160 now. At 160. 160. At £160 is bid. 160. At 160, my book is out then. At 170 now. Any advance on 170? At £170. At 170. At 170. Are we all done? There's no further protest from the book or the floor. At £170 for the quartet of Edward II long cross pennies. At £170. Thank you very much. 170 to 1-65. IN 1004 was the underbid at that time. Lot 1305. We go on to the class 15 issues of London, including the class 15C, right at the end of Edward II's reign. And we have plenty of interest, but we go straight in at £160 on the book with me. At 160 on the book with me. 170, 180. 190 beats me. At £190 now. On Spink Live at 190 for the quartet of class 15 pennies of London of Edward II at £190. At £190, the last official English issues for Edward I or Edward II. Of course, we have Berwick to come, or the crude local dies, but the last official species, at least under localised sanction. This one for the Tower of London at £190. Then we're going to leave it to chance and reserve at £190. Then last and final call at 190. Thank you very much. 190. Battle 1-65. IN 104 was your underbidder again. And so we move essentially with gusto, into the Anglo-Irish issues. We go back in time to the very start of the Hoards contents, at least all but one coin, the Dublin issues, the Class 1As, the Class 1Bs, 5 of them in the lot. A very popular series this, and if you watch the wonderful and descriptive Hambleden Hoard YouTube video done by the Searcher magazine, you will see mention, at least very early on in the discovery stage, of all the coins being Scottish and Irish. And this was found quite notably in the archaeological report as well. There seems to have been at least a visual recognition of Scottish and Irish coins at the very top of the hoard and English coins at the very bottom. Very interesting little observation there and very helpfully noted by detectorists at the time. And so we have £180 for the first of the Irish issues for Dublin at £180. 5 in the lot, variable field patina, very distinctive type with that triangular feature of the king inside the triangle. At £180 then, are we all done? Are we going to leave it to chance? No, we're not, because we have book bids coming in. Here they come at 260, 280, 300, 320. Surprise at £320 on the book. You're out on Speak Live, it's £320. With the bidders on the book at 320, not leaving anything to chance here at £320. On the book at 320, against John Spink Live and against the other book bids and live bidders at £320, pushing that average up at £320. At 320 then, are we all done? At £320, last and final call at 320. Thank you, at 320 to battle 2015. That's reserved. Your under bidder was 2010. Lot 1307, the second of the long cross, Anglo-Irish long cross penny lots. And we move on to the Class 1As of Dublin. The Class 1, note the early class there without the punctuation stops. And 5 of them in the lot. And we go straight in at 180, but I must come straight in at 200, 220, 240. 240 is bid with me. At £240 on the book, with me at 240. At 240. At 240. Are we all done then at 240? Last and final call at 240 then, with the book bid against the live bidders at 240. Thank you, at 240 to 2010. Lot 1308. And again, we come in at £240 as we move to the group, the 6 coins of Waterford at £240. All 6 coins of Waterford at £240 is the bid. At £240 is the bid. At 240. At 240, is there any advance on 240 with the book bid against John Spink Live at 240? Falling short again of that average that you need at £240. Last and final call at 240. Fair warning at 240. 240 to 2010 again. And lot 1309, we move on to that very rare, and again, not officially spotted, intermediate issue Class 2 with the rose on breast. And we have £220 bid, a scarce issue this on its own. The intermediate issue again struck 1294. 240 is bid at 240. A nice rarity this. Shall we see any contest at 240? At 240. At 240. 260 is cool, thank you. At 260. At £260 for the rare intermediate issue. Irish penny struck around 1295. £260 is bid. And 1-3 comes in again for the rarities. No surprise there. At £260. 280, a new place. Welcome along, paddle 135. Unfamiliar is this, £300. Remember, you need that average to be above 300. So you have to keep bidding in order to push up that average. We were languishing in the 220s earlier. Let's hopefully see that number go up and see a true contest. £300 is bid now. For the intermediate issue penny, 320, thank you. New place at 320. Do we see any more at 320? The more you bid now, the more likely you are to walk away with the individual lots. At 320, 340. At 340. 1-3 is doing all they can to try and win these lots individually. They might be sorely disappointed after this if they're not helped. At £340. And again, we have plenty of viewers and bidders climbing. More and more people joining online, but you're not bidding. So with paddle 1-3 at the moment, at £340. Against you paddle 158, against you paddle 135. You're going to leave this to chance. At £340 then, it's with you paddle 3. At 360 in the nick of time at 360. Do you want to keep going 1-3? Do you want to see this as a contest? You do. At 380, why not? You've understood the memo. At 380, the average needs to be £300 or more for 120 lots. That's all you've got to think about. So if you keep bidding over £300 per lot, you're fine. But you've left a lot to do by bidding £100, £150, £200 before. You've got to keep pushing, push hard. At £380 now, we're in the final stretch. We've got 30 lots to go. At £380 then, are we absolutely done? No, we're not. 400. Inching along at £400. On Spink Live at 400. Do we see any more at £400? At 420, why not? For the rarity that it is. Try again, 158. At £420. Incremental steps for all things that help the bottom line. At £420 now. At 440. At 460. We keep going at 460. That's helping the average, pushing it back up at 460. At £460. Is there any more from you, Paddle 158? Yes, there is. Now, I'm sure Paddle 3, we've seen you do this many times before. Are you going to bid 500? As if on cue at 500. Thank you. At £500 now. 550 is next if you want it. 158 at £500. Are you going to go for it? It's £500 against you. At £500. You're not leaving this to chance. At £500, you're pushing that average up. 550, thank you. At 550, you're going for it. At 550. At £550. Is there any more from you, Paddle 3? You've tried it before. And they do. Paddle 3 comes back in at 600. You'll need 650 now. If you want to win this, it's £600. You need to push that average up at £600 now. At £600. At £600. At 600, are we all done? Are you out of puff? 158. You've had a lot of fun. But at £600, fair warning, last and final chance at £650. They're not done. They've doubled the average. That's what we like to see at £650. What are you thinking, Paddle 3? You've gone beyond your usual stretch. It's £650 against you. You're going to try again? At £650 then? Samir, do you want to take those? £650 then? Sorry. Last and final call at £650 then. Fair warning, at £650. Thank you, at £650. Battle 1-58. Pushed hard, pushed long. Lot 1310. We move on to the 5 Class 4 issues of Dublin. Struck 12.97 to 13.07. There they are, 5 of them in the lot, and we go straight in at £260. At £260. On the book at 260. At 260. At £260. At £260 on the book. At 260. At 260. Are we all done? At £260. If there's no further protest from the floor, all the Spink Live bidders, you're going to leave it to chance at 260. At £260 then, last and final chance of 260. Thank you. 260, it's reserved. 2010. Thank you. And lot 1311. We move on to Scotland. Alexander III. The curious, the very, very convoluted to classify. Pennies of Alexander III in the Class BE, the very distinctive portrait of Class BE, a very photogenic looking coin this, one of the nicest Alexander II pennies in the hoard. And we go straight in. At 120, and ever reliable Paddle 1-3 is back. Obviously spotted something. £120 for the Scottish penny of Alexander the Great. At Alexander the III, excuse me. 140 is bid, 2 new places. At 140, at 140, 150, at 150, at 150 now. 3 different bidders, all coming in at 150. Keep pushing up that price. Full round planchette, pleasing, very fine, scarce. £150 is bid. Is there any more in the tank at £150? At £150. Are we all done now then? Are you leaving it to chance? 163, 105. At £150 then, last and final call at £150. Last call. Thank you, at 150. To Paddle 1-3. Reserved there. Lot 1312, we move on to the Class BDM Mule. And we go straight in with 2 conflicting bids of £150. So we'll start there at 150. At £150 on Spink Live. At 150 on Spink Live. Is there any advance on 150 for the BDM Mule? At £150. Again, leaving it to chance. Practically very fine and scarce at £150. They're going to have to make some sensational prices on Robert the Bruce pennies at this rate. At £150 it is then. Last and final call at £150 then. Fair warning. Thank you, 150. 1-2. Lot 1313, we move on to the pair of Berwick issues. Berwick upon Tweed, of course, under Scottish rule at this time. And 2 issues of Alexander III, the Class MAD Mule and the Class MA True coin. And £110 only is bid. At £110, you will need plenty more than this for pair 120. These Scottish issues, very popular. Lovely series of this here. Subdued bidding. Perhaps they think it's too far a bridge to go in order to get their individual lots at £120, but we really do not know. At £120. At £120. At £120, are we all done then? At £120 then, last and final call at £120. Thank you. So that's paddled up. That's very unusual. 120 to 1-1. So we've had 1-3, 1-2, 1-1. There you go. They've lined up. Well, before those £220 lots, the average was 242. So you're going absolutely in the right direction. You're now going in reverse. So you've got to think about this. It's only £50 more. You're almost there. Lot 13, 14. 4 of these in the lot. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of interest in these at £130 bid. Who's going to take them on? At £130. At £130. On Speak Live at 130. 140 now. At 140 is bid. At 140, the group of 4 Berwick-upon-Tweed pennies. And possibly one of Roxburgh, based on the number of points on the stars of the mullet, at £140. You're going in reverse at the moment. Take them on. It's £140. At £140, the average lot value is £240. You're so close at £140. Are we all done then? There's no further protest. Fair warning at 140. Thank you. 1-3 again. Oh, let's see if we go in reverse again. Lots 13, 15. And we have a lovely, good, very fine example of the Berwick-upon-Tweed MB2D mule. There it is. And we go straight in with 2 conflicting bids of £160. At £160. At 160. At 160 is the bid. On Speak Live at 160. At 160. My book is out. It's 160 on Speak Live. At £160. At 160. The lovely Berwick-upon-Tweed issue at £160. You're snatching defeat from the jaws of victory at this point, bidding at this level at £160. Keep pushing that average up. Here's your opportunity to do so at £160 then. We'll reserve it at 160, but you're leaving it all to chance at £160. Thank you at 160 to 1-63, at least for now, but you'll need plenty more. Lot 13, 16. And we have 3 examples in the lot. MC1 of Berwick-upon-Tweed, MB3 of Berwick-upon-Tweed, and MC2 of Berwick-upon-Tweed. And we have £120 bid on the book, at £120 for the trio, at 120 with me, at 120, at 120. Are we all done then? At 120, if there's no further protest, all the Scots clansmen have seemed to have left the room at £120, last and final chance at 120. And that's why we reserve it at 120 to 2010, leaving a lot to chance there. Lot 13, 17. We move on to the MC1E mule and the MC2D mule, both of Berwick-upon-Tweed, and we have 2 conflicting bids of £170. At 170, 180, thank you, knocks me out of place. At 170, 180, 180 is bid. At £180. At £180 for the pair of these, pushing the average up a little bit, but not quite enough. At £180 for the pair of these. Are we all done? If there's no further protest, at £180, last and final chance at 180. Thank you, at 180. 2010. The underbid at that time was, 1-60. The underbidder was 2010. Lot 13, 18. And we have another pair here. This struck for, reputedly, Perth, based on the fact it has 26 points on the mullet, although that can't really be scientifically proved these days, based on the intermulings of min marks. £100 is bid, I must go 120. 120 with me. At £120 on the book with me. At 120, supposedly of Perth and another of Berwick-upon-Tweed. 130 is bid, thank you, 130. At 130. 140. At 140 for the pair of these, at 140. On Speak Live at 140. At £140. At 140. Are we all done now then? Are we out of puff? At £140 then, leaving it a lot to chance at £140. Thank you, at 140 to 1-03, and your underbid at that time was 2010 again. Lot 13, 19. And we have, again, Class ED mules of Perth, 2 of them. And we go straight in with 2 conflicting bids of £120 on the book with me. At £120 on the book with me. On the book at 120. At £120 on the book. At 120. At 120. 130 is bid. At £130 is bid. Thank you at 130. Any advance on 130? The 26-point stars of the Scottish coins at 130 it is then. at £130. Last and final call at 130. Thank you, at 130. Reserved to 1-2. I fear not quite enough today. Lot 1320. The last of Alexander III's issues before we have the installation of an English monarch in Scotland. The Class D1 of Roxburgh, also included with Perth, Berwick-upon-Tweed. 3 different supposed mints in there. 160, 170, 180 is called, but I go 200, 220, 240. £240 for the group of 5 at £240. At 240 with my book bid. Anyone want to take them on at 240? At £240. At 240. Are we all done then? At £240 then? 260, no we're not. Welcome along, 120. You've grasped the nettle. At £260. The more you push now, the more likely you are to win the early lots that you've reserved. At £260, are we all done now then? At £260, the group of 5 Scottish coins. At 260, giving it a good fight, but not quite enough at £260. 260 is the reserve for 1-120. Lot 1321, and here we are, John Balliol, the English installation, the appointed king of the North in 1292. And we are looking for £100 to start me on this pair at £100. And it's bid straight off the top at £100 for the pair of Scotland of John Balliol. Rough surface issues struck at Berwick. Notice the appearance of Berwick here at £100. Any advance on £100? And holding then for the John Balliol pair at £100. You've given as good as you got, but it's going to the opening bid at reserve then at £100. Last and final chance. 100 it's reserved to 1-3. Our firm favourite there, bidding on all the rarities. Lot 1322, the last of the John Balliol issues. This is one of the rare St Andrews mint. Civitas Sandre, technically fine for issue and very rare. And we have plenty of book bids on this one. I go 200, 300, 340, 360, 380, 400 is bid. That's more like it at £400. For St Andrews penny of John Balliol at £400. At £400. At 400. At 400. Are we all done then? At £400. At 400. Last and final call at 400 then. It's with the Spink Live bidder against my book at £400, giving it a good fight, this one, the St Andrews penny of John Balliol. Another unique coin from the Hoard at £400. The only one offered today at least at £400. Thank you very much. At 400 to 1-2. The underbid at that time was IN 1013. Lot 1323. And we move on to Berwick-upon-Tweed under Edward I. And we have the pair of nice Type 1As. One with the spelling error. Berwick spelled with an I rather than a B. A classic money is error there. And the first issue struck by the hammer of the Scots in the contested territory. £130 is bid for the pair of Berwick-upon-Tweed pennies at £130. For these at £130. Nice portraits on these for Class 1A issues of local die currency from Berwick at £130. At 130 and holding at 130. At 130, we all done then? Are we leaving it all to chance at £130 then? Last and final call. No, we're not. 140 in the nick of time. Welcome along, 71. You've got to wake up there. You've got plenty of room still to go if you want to have any chance of winning these as individual lots. At £140, are you reserving it at 140? Thank you, at 140. 1-71. Lot 1324, we move on to Class 2C issues of Berwick, and we are looking for £100. Start me here. At £100, the pair of Class 2Cs here with the quirky, crude portraits of Berwick at £100. In interest, 100. At 100 is bid. Thank you, at £100. On Spink Live at 100. Is there any advance on £100? On Spink Live at 100 then? I'll give you fair warning, 110, new place. Welcome along, 171. New bidders don't recognise you. Remember the rules. You have to make that average above 300 across all 120 lots to have any chance of winning your individual lot now. So please bid swiftly, promptly, and firmly. Thank you very much. 120 now. The more you bid now, the more likely you are to win it and put it out of reach for the group bidder. He's already set down a very firm precedent of £34,000 for the lot earlier today, meaning you have to average £300 or more per lot to even stand a chance of walking away with them as individual lots. And £120 is bid. Is there any more? Are you out of puff, 171? Are you giving up the ghost? Over 120 people now online. It's still climbing. But £120 is where we settle on the reserve, at least for now, at £120. 120. 1-151. Lot 1325. And we have the class 3B, Berwick-upon-Tweed penny. Very scarce coin this. Lovely portrait. Very photogenic piece. And we have lots of bids tumbling in. And we have 75. I go 80. 85, 90 with me. At £90 with me. With me at 90. At £90 with me for the class 3B, Berwick-upon-Tweed penny. At £90. At £90 only. At £90. Faint crimping, but otherwise deeply toned and lustrous about, very fine. 95 is called My Book Is Out at £95. Who wants to take on 171 and push that average up as best you can? At £95 then. Are we all done at £95? We'll say fair warning then. At £95, if there's no further protest, you've given as good as you got, but you're settling at 95, and that's where the reserve is, at 95 to 1-171. Lot 1326. And we move on to class 4 issues. Late in the reign of Edward I, early in the reign of Edward II, of course. Stopped in their tracks by the issue at Bannockburn in 1314. But these ones just before then. And £100 is bid for the group of 4 class 4 pennies, struck sometime late in the reign of Edward I, early in the reign of Edward II. And £100 is the reserve bid for all 4 of these. Lot 1326, you're going to need more at £100. At £100 then, if you're leaving it to chance, at £100 then, 110 in the nick of time, at 110. Any bid now helps average out at £110. Keep pushing now on the lots you really, really want, because you'll have more of a chance of actually taking them home individually rather than going to the group bidder. Because remember, they have a right to reply. So the more you put them out to reach now, the less likely they are to take them from you. At £110. But at the moment, you've not even hit the average. At £110. At 110 then, are we reserving them at 110? That we are, at 110 to 1-132. Lot 1327, the class 6. Unusual class 6 with the retrograde Villa Berevici on the reverse, clearly struck in a moment of high crisis and perhaps illiteracy. And we have the class 6 Berwick-upon-Tweed penny, struck just around the time of the issue at Bannockburn, before Berwick was seized back by the Scots in 1318. £65 is bid for this rare class 6 Berwick penny at £70, 75 now. Every bid will count. Every bid counts here at £75. 80 is called at £80, £80, at £80, at £80, 85 and 90, they keep going. And £90, at £90, at £90. Is there any more at £90? At £90. At £90. 90 is all done then. At £90 then, last and final call at £90. Thank you very much, £90. And that is to 1-158. 2010 was your. And we have the first of our 2 wonderful Robert the Bruce pennies, struck at Berwick-upon-Tweed, again after the Scots seized it. And this is where our biggest chance of overcoming that average loss that we've had so far can come back into play. The wonderful Robert the Bruce pennies, 2 of them in the hoard. The first on offer, and we have £1,200 bid 2 ways. So who will split me up? It's £1,200. At £1,200. At £1,200. At 1,200. 1,300 advances me at 1,300 now. On Spink Live at 1,300. The first of the 2 Robert the Bruce pennies at 1,300. At £1,300. At £1,300. At 1,300. Is there any more? At £1,300. At 1,300. At 1,300. Are we all done then? Are we absolutely sure? At £1,300. This is your opportunity to put the challenge back to the group bidder. But if you want to sacrifice it, so be it. At £1,300. I'll give you fair warning then. At £1,300 then, last and final chance at £1,300. Thank you at 1,300. And that goes to paddle 1-3. They won't push that time. Lot 1329, the second of these. And we go straight in again at £1,200. At £1,200. Making up the average, but is it enough? At £1,200. That's £1,200 now. Lot 1329. The last 10 lots, or even less of that, of the Hambleden Silver Hoard at £1,200. at 1,200. Are we all done then? Are we reserving it at 1,200 if there's no further protest at £1,200? Last and final call at £1,200. 1,200 is the reserve then, and that's gone to 1-45. Lot 1330, we move on to the imitations, otherwise known as the Hagemunten, struck in potentially Cynray Castle by the name of London, with these quirky portraits, and of course more brittle silver. And again, notice RA60, random assemblage. This was clearly one of the coins that was noted as being deficient or substandard, and whoever accumulates the hoard noted that and kept it within the very top layers of the hoard. Very interesting note there. At £120 is bid. At £120 for the group of imitations. At £120, 4 of them in the lot. I can come in at 130, 140, 150, 160, 170, 180. 180 is called on Spink Live at 180. At £180, that's going to help. At £180, is there any advance on 180? On Spink Live at 180, the book is out. At £180. At 180. Are we all done then? At £180 then. Last and final chance at £180. Thank you, and that's the reserve at 180 to battle 1-50. They've given as good as they've got. Let's see if it's enough. Lot 1331. And we have more Hagemunten, this style of the second period, post-1300 issues, with a very distinctive 10CF style crowns. £140 is bid. I must come in at £150, excuse me, 150, 160, 170 now. 170, 180, 190 now. 200. New place beats me at £200. At £200 then, lot 1331 at 200. At £200. Is there any advance on £200? The group of continental issues of the latest style at £200. We'll have only 8 properly identified imitations directly of the Edward species at £200. At £200. And that's very interesting because what's needed to overcome with the individual bidding is less than £6,000. And that was before we added the Scots pieces in. That's very, very interesting. At £200. So you have 5 lots to overcome just shy of £4,000. Interesting stuff. Very, very dicey. At £200 it is then. Are we reserving it at £200? Last and final chance at £200. Thank you very much. At 200. 1-50. Lot 1332. Go absolutely hammer and tongs for this to put it to a review at 220, 240, within £4,000 of beating the group bidder. Fantastic. At £260. Now that's an auction. At 280 now for the wonderful Au Châtel Brabançon, the wonderful single ecclesiastical type in the hoard. Imitation of a sterling penny, but what a wonderful looking coin this is. And of course, whomever acquired this hoard, which we assume to be the Peveril family, would definitely have had their curiosity piqued by seeing not a portrait, but a building, perhaps one they'd never even seen before unless they'd been on pilgrimage. £400 is bid at £400. At £400, that's helping the average. 420, keep on bidding. 440, why not? Bid with abandon. You know you're that close. You're that close to overcoming the group bid at £440. At 440. At 440, so desperately close at 440. Keep going. 460, new place. Here they come. 480, yes. Keep on bidding. At £480, that's all you have to do at £480 to put it back to the question of the group bidder at £480. 500 is called. 550 now. At 550, they've worked it out. It's no longer about chance. It's down to the last few £1,000 difference. At £650 comes up. At 650, go for it. Why not? Try to secure those lots you've reserved earlier. 750. They're throwing everything at it at £750 now. At 750, that's what we like to see at 750. Is there any more? At £750. 800 is called. 850. They're giving it a go at £850. Why not? At £850. Is there any more? Struck in Brussels, the wonderful Au Châtel Brabançon. You might not even collect medieval coins, but this is just a wonderful piece of medieval history from an amazing hoard, something that will be internationally recognized for decades to come. One of the most important hoards ever found in continental Europe from the 14th century. £850 is the bid. Are you out of puff? 192. It's 850 against you. 900. No, you're not. At 950, go for it. Say 1,000. Give us 1,000 on this at £950. At 950, go for it. 192. Don't leave it to chance. Give it another bid. You've taken us this far. It's £950. Another unique specimen from the Hambleden hoard of 649 silver coins. 1,000 is called. Thank you. 1,100 comes up at £1,100. Now we have a contest at £1,100. We are so close to overcoming that group bid at £1,100 now. You can almost taste it at £1,100. At £1,100, do I say 1,200 now? 192. You've pushed it so hard at £1,100. Do you not want to leave this to chance? Do you want to secure it now? It's at £1,100 against you. At £1,100, are we all done? At £1,100 and holding at £1,100, a stupendous price for a wonderful and unique coin from the Hambleden hoard. At £1,100, are we done? Fair warning at £1,100 for a wonderful coin. At £1,100, last and final call at £1,100. Thank you very much. Fantastic result there. 1,100 to 1-78, pushing so hard. They've got to live through the next couple of lots, though. The agony that's going to come as we move to Robert of Bethune and this wonderful Flandrian imitation of the Scottish coin. And we go straight at £360. You know you are so close. That will have helped the average so much. You are within thousands of pounds from this. Just keep bidding. Push it as hard as you can. Throw everything at this. Just the opportunity to secure your coins individually with just a few £1,000s difference. At £460 now. At 460, you've come so close. At 460, my book is out. It's 460. Is there any advance on 460? Against you, paddle 146 at £460 for this fascinating imitation of the Bruce prototype at £460. Struck sometime between 1320 and 1322. And given the fact that Robert Bethune died in 1322, incredible to see how quickly prototypes moved around continental Europe within 12, 18 months to be copied. In Flanders, £500 is called now, £500. Every single bid will help towards that average total and may well put pressure on the group bidder. They may not come back. You may well win this if you keep pushing hard now to break that average at £500. Is there any more? At £500. Are we all done? Are you absolutely sure 146? 167 has stepped into the ring, trying to push the price up at £500. Try again. It's £500. Are we all done now then? At £500. Last and final call at £500. 500 it is then on the reserve, 1-167. And we have lot 1334. We move on to John the Blind. At £440 we come in. This wonderful group of 7 crocards of a prolific forger struck at the various mints of Luxembourg, of Maraud, of Damvilliers. £440 is bid. At £440, is there any advance on 440? At £440, 460 comes in. At 460, 480 now. Here we go again. At 480. At 500 now, 550 comes in. At 550, absolutely helping that average. At 550, at £550 now. At £550, is there any more? At £550. At 550 then, are we absolutely sure? At £550 then, last and final call at 550. Fair warning, are we reserving it at 550? 550 it is then, to 1-51. And lot 1335, just 3 agonizing lots to go. And we have £240 already bid at 240, but I come in at 260, 280, 300, 320, 340, 360, 380, £400. This wonderful monetary union type of Lorraine and the Bishopric of Toul, probably struck at the time of Duke Frederick IV and Jean d'Arzilière with Amadeus of Geneva. And what makes this interesting, Hic Moneta Nostra. This is our money. A wonderful, cool coin. £400 is bid. At £400 on Spink Live at 400. At £400. At £400. At £400. At £400. Are we all done? Are we absolutely sure at £400? 420 is called. At 420 now, they keep going. At 420, at 420, we're within £3,000. At 420, at £420, you are within £3,000 of beating the £34,000 group bid. That's all you need to do in the next 3 lots. It's less than £3,000. It's incredibly close. At £420, is there any more in the tank from anyone? Are you really going to leave this to chance? The last couple of lots at £420. At 420, are we all done? Are we letting it go? Are we reserving it then at £420? At 420, it's reserved then. Pressure's on. To 1-89, lot 1335A, the penultimate lot of the Hambleden Hoard of Silver. And we have a wonderful group here of Brabant, Combray, Gelderland, Edward Count of Bar, Gaucher of Châtillon, Jean II of Avesnes. Not people I'd expect you to mentally recall in time to come, but certainly important within the context of this hoard. The few continental issues that made its way, that should have been kept out by the traders and merchants at the ports, but nevertheless made their way to be trading, not just in England, but in Hambleden, where they were buried 660 years ago. £160 is bid, but I come in at 200. £200 is bid. 200 is called at £200. At £200. At 220 is called. Thank you. At 220. At £220. At 220. 240. At 240. 260. They know the pressure is on. They're getting to within £2,000 of overcoming the incremental bid from the group. At £260, it is so desperately close, but you've left it so late, it's so difficult to overcome. At £260, 280, you're giving it everything you can. 300, thank you. At £300, this wonderful group of continental issues, 8 of them, prolific examples of crocards, sterlings, imitations of Edward I, Edward II at £300. You're falling agonizingly short. At £320, keep going, keep pushing. At £320, £340, why not? You have nothing to lose at this point. You're on the penultimate lot and you're within £2,000 of beating the group bid. At £380 now. At 380. At 380. And then you'll have to put the pressure on the group bid buy because they might come back and say more. So just keep bidding. Put it beyond reach of them at 400 now. Thank you. At £400. At 400. At £400, is there any more? For the group of 7, 420, they're trying it at £420. At 420, desperate fight on Spink Live. At £420 for these. At 420. At £420. At £420, is there any more? Are you absolutely sure, Paddle 78? Are you leaving it to the last lot of the silver? At £420. At £420, are we all done then? At 420, if you're absolutely sure, at £420. Last and final call then, we're reserving it at 420. At 420 to Paddle 1-158. Okay, and the auction team will tell me. For the last lot, what do we need? Just shy of £2,000. Well, this is going to be very interesting to see if people go for it. It's £170. Have they pushed it this hard, or are they just going to go, why not? Put it to a vote at £190. You've got £1,800 to beat. It's 240. Go for it. 260, 280, 300, 320, 340, 360. Here we go. 380. £380. Why not? You've got £1,500 still to bid. Go for it at £380. Are you really going to leave this to chance? At £380, so agonizingly close. At £380. At £380. At 400 now. At 420. At 420, 440. 440, 460. Go for it. 480. 500. 500 is called. At £500. At £500. Are we absolutely sure at 500? You've still got 1,000 plus to reach at £600. Even to put it to the group bidder to come back, it's £650, £700 now. At £700, £750, £800. At £800. At £800, you're falling £1,000 short. I'm sure there's still room there. It's £800. Are you really going to leave it to 850, 900? At 900, there it is at 950. At 1,000 is called. At 1,000. They are so determined. It's fantastic to see. At £1,000. Come on, you can keep going. You're within £1,000 now. At £1,000. Between the group bid and the individual bids. At £1,000. Just goes to show every single £10 bid before meant so much. At £1,000. Are you out of puff 51? Are you really not going to bid 1,100? Are you going to leave it desperately short? At £1,000. Are we all done? At 1,000 then? Are you absolutely going to let this go at £1,000? Fair warning against you, Paddle 78. No, 1,100, they come back. They can't let it go at 1,200. Keep going, 51. There's no need to play coy here. You're within hundreds of pounds of overreaching the group bid now. 1,300, 1,400. Here we go at 1,400. We are so close. 1,500, 1,600, 1,600. Keep going. It's a few £100 more at £1,600. That's all it is. You've pushed so hard. You're prepared to pay a record price for a pair of Louis IV of Bavaria sterlings just to get an opportunity to own part of this hoard at £1,600. You are within £500 of doing it at £1,600. Are you going to do it, Paddle 51? Are you out at £1,600? Brutally short. At £1,600, then are we absolutely sure? At £1,600. Looks like Paddle 78 wants to have a go. So any one of you 140 bidders online, all you have to bid is a couple of bids just to put it to contest. At £1,600. Do we see it? At £1,600. At £1,600. We're holding at £1,600. Are we really going to let this go for only a few £100? Unbelievable. At £1,600. High drama on Spink Live. Let's see. Last call to anyone online. That's £1,600. £1,700 comes in. At 1,700, 1,800. Here we go. At 1,800, 1,900. Say 2,000. 2,000 is cool. At 2,000. At 2,000. 2,200 comes up. 2,400. Go for it, 78. You've now put it to a contest. There will be a right of reply. At 2,400. 2,600 is called. At £2,600. You've done it. At £2,600. Is there any more? Do you want to put it further out of reach, Paddle 78? It now goes to a head off at £2,600. Are we done now at £2,600? Because basically the next group bid will take this. So you have the opportunity to put it beyond reach if you want to keep pushing now. That is your choice at £2,600. High drama at £2,600. We know that there will be a reply from the group bidders. Will it be yes or will it be no? That's your option to say based on what you bid now. At £2,600. I give you fair warning, Paddle 78. You've pushed us this far, £2,800. At £2,800, they cannot let it go. At £2,800. Paddle 3, pressure's on you now. You've taken us so far over so many lots at £2,800. You are gifting the potential of every single one of the 120 lots to all the other people that didn't support you. Do you want to go 3,000 and make it awkward for them? It's £2,800. At 2,800, are we absolutely sure? Are you all done, Paddle 3? At £2,800. Last and final call. At £2,800 then. And fair warning, we will reserve that at 2,800. Last chance. It's 2,800 and we go to a contest. Paddle 178. Well, well, well. So we will have 3 group bidders that we will have to ask whether they want to advance the bid. And they are Paddle 108, Paddle 72 and Paddle 909. So if we pause and so we can get lot 1336A up, then we'll be able to instrument that bid. So if we pause the auction here so we can get 1336A up and we can call all 3 of those group bidders who are so kind to advance us, we can see if it's going to go to a group bid or if it's going to go to individual buyers. Right. Ooh. I didn't expect that at the last. That's unbelievable. Unbelievable. But there we go. So we know at least that the Hambleden hoard is on a knife edge for the silver, and we haven't even come to the gold yet. And it's genuinely a pleasure to potentially see a hoard of such importance not just be split to the 4 winds of earth and benefit potentially hundreds of collections going forward, but the potential option that they will stay together, at least for now.